have said the package is an important step in the right direction.
Question number 4, Kevin Hague.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by his statement in regard to the report of the Royal Commission on the Pike River coal mine tragedy that the company completely and utterly failed to protect their workers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, the first obligation of any employer is to keep its employees safe. By any measure, Pike River Coal failed to do so.
Kevin Hague.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree with the Royal Commission that at Pike River production was put before safety?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, reading the Royal Commission's report, I'm drawn to the same conclusion.
Kevin Hague.
Supplementary. How is it possible that for years we had an underground coal mine operating in New Zealand with only one usable exit?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think member raises a good point. There's quite a whole section on the ventilation issues and the use of an underground ventilation fan in the Pike River mine. Member will also be aware that some of that was done to accommodate a variety of reasons, including demands by DOC that looked at the conservation issues.
Kevin Hague.
Supplementary. Does he agree that the deregulation of occupational health and safety that occurred in the 1990s was the major factor in creating an environment where management at Pike River were able to ignore workers' calls to improve safety? And if not, why not?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no. Let's take a step back. The primary responsibility of any company when it comes to health and safety issues rests with that company. So a good employer is always going to make sure that their employees are safe in the workplace. The role of a regulator is to someone to ensure that the company is fulfilling its obligations, not to fulfil those obligations for the company. The company itself must do that. In the case of Pike River Coal, the company utterly failed.
Kevin Hague.
Supplementary. Does he agree that standard economic theory suggests that profit-maximising firms will always prioritise profitability over safety unless the government, as regulator, ensures the safety of workers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think that's a ridiculous statement. That is saying that a company is prepared to risk the deaths of its employees and the reputation of the company for the sole purpose of making money. And even to the most hardened socialist, I find that something difficult to believe. In the case of Pike River Mine, let's argue just for a moment that the Pike River Coal Company was halfway through its mining operations and was a successful operation that was operating well. An explosion of the magnitude that took place back in 2010 would have then completely and utterly collapsed that company. That would have made no economic sense to anyone.
Kevin Hague.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Will his government address the pervasive low-touch, high-trust regulatory culture that he referred to yesterday that continues to kill and to injure workers in other areas besides mining, such as agriculture, forestry and manufacturing?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think it was quite clear from the Royal Commission's report yesterday, as while it's specific at one level to the Pike River mine disaster, it makes wide-sweeping recommendations in relation to health and safety issues across the entire New Zealand workforce. In that regard, the government's committed to implementing those regulations or recommendations, and therefore there will be significant change, and that significant change will permeate across all industries around New Zealand. So in answer to his question, my view is that there will be a difference of approach in the way that health and safety issues are managed in New Zealand. But I go back to the most fundamental point. In the end, that responsibility still rests with the company. We can change the way that we go from being a more high-trust and more prescriptive regime, but that is a situation of still dealing with the issues after the fact. We still need New Zealand employers to make sure they deploy the highest safety standards they can.
Kevin Hague.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Given that the ideology of deregulation in our workplaces has cost at least these 29 lives, will he now assure the public that the era of ideologically driven deregulation is over?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in one regard, all issues of policy are ideological. You can take an ideological view that something should be more prescriptive over something being more deregulated. Secondly, I would take issue with the statement that the member made. It wasn't a question. He started it with given, and his statement was that the primary responsibility rests with the government. The primary responsibility rests with the company.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Did the review of safety in underground mines instituted by the Labor government and scrapped by his relate to all underground mines or only to small mines?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I simply don't have that paperwork in front of me to comment on that.
Question number 5, Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Social Development. Does she stand by her statement in